proposal is a like-for-like rebuild, so the rebuild will be in line and levels as shown on the planning drawing, which you can now see on the screen. The existing stonework would be laid in the same manner as the existing wall. Use of locally sourced ironstone to replace any damaged and or missing stonework, carefully selected and mixed in with the original. Slide, please. So just consider that there would be no undue impact on the conservation area or on the setting of a Grade 1 listed building. The Conservation Officer has no objections. Just consider that there would be no undue impact on the nearby TPO. Forestry Officer provided comments at a later date and stated that the tree report is satisfactory and outlines the works that are to be taken place outside the protection area of the trees, and therefore a method statement wouldn't be necessary. The proposal then would accord with policy N13 of the Melton Local Plan, as well as the objectives of the NPPF and section 66.1 and 72.1 of the Listed Buildings Conservation Areas Act 1990. The application is therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you, Deborah. Do any members have any questions for clarification from the officer? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very interesting, I think. I just wanted a bit of clarification for if each end of the wall is still there, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. Each end of the well, we told you all. Yeah, sorry about that. But if it sort of is there any way that each end can be kept up? Because I'm thinking of the cost. That's all really. But I just for clarification, I don't know whether.
Yeah, even though we are the applicants and the people paying, I don't think we're interested in this respect of the costs, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, you okay with that? Yeah. Councillor Higgins.
Councillor Holmes just said just before the meeting started, and I think what she was just saying there, if the legal officer could explain why Melton Borough Council is the applicant, because obviously it's a closed part of the churchyard. So I know this is a public forum. Some people may or may not know. So because it's quite an archaic legislation, so I think that just help as well.
Yes, I'm not going to go into masses of details. It's a really complicated area of law, but essentially the responsibility has fallen to us as a closed churchyard, and because it's therefore our application, the Constitution requires that to be determined by the planning committee. So hopefully that answers your question. It is our application, therefore it has to come here.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, it's to do with the low-level timber knee rail fence, and it says here would be erected to the top of the rebuilt wall. Obviously, that would be to all of it, and reusing as much of the existing. Oh, sorry, I've just read from a different one there. Erected to the top of the rebuilt wall to provide demarcation at the edge of the existing path and to prevent falls from height. Does that mean the path is quite high on the other side of the wall? Because it's just that it wasn't there before. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm just wondering how that, why you wanted to put it there.
So I think there's about 1 metre between the footpath and the grassed area below. So I think it was for safety of pedestrians, basically, was why they wanted it there. Yeah.
Yeah, I presumed as much. I just wanted to ensure that's what it was. Thank you.
Any other questions for clarification? No. In that case, we have no more speakers on this application. So I'd like to open it for debate. Obviously, we have a recommendation to approve the application. Does anybody wish to talk? Councillor Higgins?
I think because it's a relatively simple case, which would normally be a delegation if it wasn't the council as the applicant. I always place great faith in what the conservation officer says as well, and so I note his comments there. So I'm happy to go with the officer recommendation.
So you're proposing, yeah, do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, second. In that case, I'd like to take it to the vote to approve this application. All those in favour, please raise their hands. That's unanimous. That's passed. Thank you very much, everyone. So we'll now move on to the second application, 24/00794/FUL, the land northwest of 43 Church Lane, Long Clawson. And we'll pass over to Chris. And again, welcome to the meeting and thank you for taking this on. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can start the slides now. This application has been brought to committee in line with the scheme of delegation from the Melton Borough Council in terms of number of objections received, in excess of 11. The red line is the application site and the blue line is the land and ownership of the applicant. The application is for a single detached self-built dwelling. If we can just go on to the other slide. This is the layout of the Long Clawson Conservation Area. You can see the application site as pointed out in the far southwest corner. Next slide, please. Having been to the site and taken a few photographs, this is the grounds of the listed building of the old vicarage south of the site and approximately 35-40 metres away. This is standing in the actual curtilage of the grounds on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the view northwest of the site, and there you can see 55 Church Lane, which abuts the development in the corner. And the second slide shows a view standing into the actual site itself, looking northwest towards 55 Church Lane. The second slide is looking north, directly in the site. It's heavily vegetated and there's a couple of trees, and there's a clear distinction between the site, the application site, and the curtilage of the old vicarage. The site is completely overgrown and completely enclosed to its north, facing Church Lane. The evolution of the proposal, next slide, sorry. It's obviously construct a new self-built dwelling. It's undergone significant changes from when it was originally submitted in 2018. It's a completely different design, scale and orientation. It's also been amended during the application process following Conservation Officer comments, reduced width and change in roof design. It's now considered sensitive to the wider heritage assets particularly in terms of use of materials. It's obviously a reduced frontage onto Church Lane. Its gable is directly facing onto Church Lane, and it addresses the previous appeal issues. As we can see on the next slide, comparison between the two. On the left-hand side is the previously refused scheme in 2018, and it has and these are the issues raised under appeal. The old vicarage is, in terms of the comments raised by the appeal inspector, the old vicarage is very much experienced from the north and on Church Lane. Second comment, he wasn't convinced of the previous development along Church Lane, which is obviously on the other side of Church Lane to the north of the site, and that this had not diminished the setting of the listed building. The proposed development in the case of the appeal would have eroded the open nature of the site, and the proposal would have had a harmful effect on the character and appearance of the surrounding area, including on the setting of the listed building. The proposal was considered to be of poor design, which would have failed to enhance and reinforce the local distinctiveness and character of the area. These were the issues of the previous submission in 2018. The amended scheme, on the next slide, please, So here again, sorry, I was about to talk about this. These are the comparison between, on the left-hand side is the previously refused scheme, and on the right is the current scheme. As you can see, the current scheme has been greatly orientated in terms of its front-facing gable end, which has been reduced in terms of its frontage onto Church Lane. So it's less of an impact and allows more intervisibility within the site. And next slide, please. And here's obviously the elevational changes. Again, it highlights on the previous scheme the wide frontage of the 2018 scheme compared with the new proposed scheme, which has been greatly reduced in terms of having its gable end facing forward and the reduced single-story side element and improved roof pitch from flat roof to pitch roof. Show the next slide, please. And I don't know if members want to have a look, but we have a blown up copy of this plan, which actually better shows the context of the site. So as you can see from the top is the sectional drawing showing where the application site is on the left-hand side in relation to Church Lane beside it, and residential dwellings beside Church Lane on the far left. In the middle, we have the old vicarage. And then beside that, we have the St. apologies if I pronounce this correctly, Remedialist Church. It's a grade 2 star listed building. And then we have separation distances of 35-40 meters between the application site and the old vicarage, and a greater distance between that and obviously the grade 2 star church to the further south of the site. And below that is a plan giving context of the application site in relation to types of dwellings surrounding it. It's a 1.5 story high dwelling, and immediately adjacent or close to it are similar sized dwellings from 1 to 2 stories. And the application is not considered out of character. The grade 2 listed properties have a significant separation from the proposed application for a detached dwelling to the south. So it just gives you an understanding of the context of the site. Next slide, please. And these, unfortunately, apologies for a mistake on my behalf, these conditions were omitted from the original committee report. And these conditions relate to, in terms of ecology standpoint, lighting conditions and biodiversity enhancements. From a conservation officer's point, there's an additional material detailing condition as well. Full details should be on the briefs that was sent round to the councillors. Next application slide, please. And to summarise, the proposal is in line with the requirements of policy SS2, being located within a rural area and set within the village envelope. It's on an unallocated site, and obviously this triggers policy H4 of the neighbourhood plan, and therefore is a windfall site. It's considered acceptable as a windfall site, and obviously this would be in line with, or it has to be assessed against, obviously other material considerations, and in terms of conservation, design, highways, ecology, it's compliant in all these areas. And it's recommended that this application is approved, subject to the conditions set out in section 10 of the report and recommended additional conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Would any members like to ask any questions for clarification? In case, no, I'll just ask one question then, Chris. On the outline boundary, where you've got the red line and the blue line.
Yes.
Yeah, the blue line is still part of the ownership of the new property.
That's correct.
Yeah, but is there any restrictions to what that can happen to that? Because I mean, obviously it is quite wild at the moment, and to keep that Could that possibly change in the future?
Possibly, but obviously they can't do anything with that because it hasn't been changed to garden land. It's not part of the curtilage of the actual application site. So there's a separation between the application site in red and the blue line boundary, which is obviously they own it, but they can't do anything with it in terms of put anything residential on there.
Sorry, and has the new to license for that sort of thing. Yeah.
That which is provisional.
Yeah. Councillor Gordon, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, it's to do with car parking. I'm not sure how it goes in this area. I can't remember reading it in the report. Just before I came here tonight, I suddenly thought car parking. Can you just explain some more about that, please?
There is car parking provided on the site for up to three car parking spaces, so it's a suitable turning and parking area for vehicles on the site. I didn't include these on the actual PowerPoint, apologies, but it does have sufficient parking on site in line with the number of bedrooms that are provided.
Any other questions for clarification? Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, if you please, Mr. Chairman, I don't understand the blue bit here. What does that? It said they can't do anything with it.
It's in the site. The applicant owns the actual blue line, but it's not for residential development. So if they want to have residential development there, they want to submit an application. The red line is where the application curtilage is. So they can't build on the blue line in terms of this application. They just own the land. So that's all. Apologies.
Councillor Higgins?
Yeah, so thank you for that, and thank you for the question. It was very similar to what I was going to ask. So with the blue line, could we just put that up? If that would, I think that'll help the public as well. The overall map with the what's in the red line and the blue line. Yeah.
It's hold on a second. Slide number 6.
Sometimes I do ask these questions just to test.
I've got the application in front of me in terms of the slide. I don't know if it was going to be opened up on the screen. Okay.
I'll ask the question, but if we can get the slide up, I think it just for all members and the public as well, because obviously there's lots of comments that the public have made. So, and I think like Councillor Holmes was saying, oh, thank you. So we've got the red line part there. So anything that's in the blue line, that's classed, what would that be designated as right now? Is question 1, and then I'll have another one depending on what the answer is.
It's designated as conservation area. It's not designated as anything because you can't do anything without obviously planning permission. They have to submit an application. If they're going to change the use of the land to residential, they would need to submit an application to change the use of the land. At the moment, that piece of land is a pond. It's obviously a pond. It's a triple S. It's a pond containing great crested newts. And if they were going to do anything with it in terms of, I assume you mean development.
That land will have a designation on it then. That's what I'm saying. So there's residential land, brownfield, open countrysides. What's the current designation of that land?
Well, that would be conservation area. And you can own conservation area, parcels of conservation area. And obviously there's no restrictions on that. But if they were going to build anything on the blue line, they would need to submit an application to change the use of the land to residential. You can't just build on any obviously blue line boundary land that they own. It doesn't give you permission, doesn't give you a right to develop the land. The red line is where the development is going, and then the blue line indicates that this is the land, additional land that the applicant owns, but it's not part of the application site. It's not
Okay.
part of the curtilage of the property, so it's not part of the residential curtilage.
A conservation area is not a designate. It's overall a designation. So the property number 55, that's also in the conservation area. But so conservation area side, we've got residential. You get greenfield and brownfield. If we are minded to permit in the red line, the blue line, what would that be designated as? Because you're saying it's not residential. So currently, what would it be classed as?
It's not classed as open space, designated open space. It's basically it's amenity land. It's land that's obviously part of the conservation area, like I said, but it's basically scrubland at the moment. So you can't just build on scrubland, even though it is obviously not developed upon. It's just owned by the applicant, and like I said, if they were going to build anything on that land, they would need to submit an application to develop the land, to change the designation, so change it to a residential use.
My apologies, I thought you'd finished, and I'll keep like. So thank you for that. So if we're minded to permit within the red line, there's no permitted development that then creeps into the blue line or anything like that. So what I'm trying to say is, I think I know what you're saying, but equally, obviously, there's a lot of objections and concerns. So anything that's in the red line, we're not going to have a house built and then permitted development goes into the blue line, and then someone starts using that as for example, their garden in an informal way.
I mean, there are plenty of people who own parts of the conservation area. It doesn't give them the right to build houses or any kind of development on there. But this blue line boundary is just simply in the applicant's ownership. He's not building on that land, and I believe doesn't intend to build on that land or submit a future application to do so. So that all development in terms of this application that's submitted today will be within the red line.
Or used for residential use, which could be, as in, so I build my house there, and in the blue zone, I start using it as a garden, as in I hold barbecues there. I start, that's where I'm coming from. So because obviously then it starts becoming, there's privacy issues that are raised in here. So the blue line, if we're minded to permit, I'm just trying to get a really clear answer. In the blue line, we can't have an informal use that starts becoming a garden space, and because I start putting I start putting sheds or what you would describe as ornamental features that is akin to a garden in there.
No, because then you'd be turning it into residential use, and that's not within the part of the boundary of the curtilage of the property. So you need to change the permission of the site to residential.
If that's what the officers, I'm very happy with that. So yeah, if you need to go to the other officer, that would be very helpful.
Did you want to just finish that up?
Yeah, it's just to support the comments that Chris is making. So the purpose of the blue line in the submission of a planning application. So the red line is the application site, and then the blue line is ownership by the applicant. That doesn't mean that they're proposing works in that blue line. They are legally demonstrating that they own that piece of land. The blue line land, for all intents and purposes for this application, will make no difference. It won't change. As I understand it, from looking at it on screen now, it wouldn't even benefit from permitted development rights because it is road fronting and the distance to the highway. So I don't think from this first glance that they'd be able to do anything with it anyway, but it's not part of the application.
Chair, and just to be really clear, they couldn't start using it informally to park cars or everything else we would associate with a residential dwelling, like put a shed on and all the other stuff. No, thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher, as well. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, going back to car parking again, I just want to know, is there any car parking spaces for visitors? Sometimes there's the odd one or two that could be added. I just wondered if that was the plan.
Yes, they have additional space for visitor parking on the site. You can accommodate up to 4 or 5 vehicles on the site. There's a sufficient space for visitor parking.
Thank you.
Any other questions for clarification before we move on to the other speakers for this evening? Councillor Holmes.
Sorry about this. it concerns me because this has come up before, and I remember it before. And there were several people at that time were concerned about water. Now, it doesn't say that it says it's perfectly all right, but Long Clawson floods badly. And has anybody said anything about that this time? Because
I'll just come in there.
that's all I.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because this is one of the few occasions where we actually understand what the planning inspector might think, instead of trying to guess all the time. And obviously that didn't actually come up in the appeal. So, sorry if I'm just taking your words, but if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, the application site is in, obviously you understand it has flooded, but it's in flood zone 1. They've added permeable paving on the site, and obviously in terms of foul and surface water draining, we've added a condition on there to disperse the water. So they're the flood attenuation measures we've put on.
Sorry, is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So unless there's any other questions for clarification, obviously I'm sure we'll come back to that. But in that case, I'd like to go to the speakers. Parish Council have chosen not to speak, so we'll go straight on to the objector this evening, which is Mr. Ben Dyer. Please, if you'd like to come forward to the table. You'll find a little face in the middle at the bottom. If you press the red button, the red light will come on, and it means you're on camera and you're ready to speak. And once you start speaking, Tom will start timing. You have 3 minutes, and he'll give you a 30-second warning. And if at that point you could start to tie up. And obviously afterwards, if we have any questions for clarification, we'll come back to you. So when you're ready, please begin.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Ben Dyer. I've been asked to represent the residents of Church Lane, Long Clawson, who have objected to this planning application for one house on land northwest of 43 Church Lane. This application, like previous one turned down by the council and on appeal by planning inspector, is detrimental to Long Clawson conservation area and the historical setting of the old vicarage. The 16-page brief you have quotes almost extensively. So this is the application exclusively from the applicant's design and access statements. However, it dismisses the previous extension 4-page analysis of the planning inspector's refusal with 2 brief notes stating, and I quote, and it was subsequently dismissed at appeal on heritage grounds on the 11th of April 2019, end quotes, and quotes, under a previous application, the council refused development for a single dwelling. That decision was upheld at appeal, end quotes. For this reason, for refusal detailed in 4 pages, the planning the appeal decision by the council are still relevant to this application. The council summarised it as the introduction of a dwelling on this site by virtue of its location sat within the grounds of a Grade 2 listed building and historic core of the village would be harmful to the special historical character, appearance and setting of the listed building and conservation area, therefore would not comply with policies D1, raising the standards of design, policy EN6, settlement character, policy EN13, heritage assets, and the national planning policy framework, in particular chapter 16. We respectfully ask the Planning Committee to consider the appeal decision document in tandem with the present application. Contrary to the statement 8.26 in the planning brief, the setting of the old vicarage has not changed or been compromised over time. Application 14/00897/FUL was for a bungalow that was never built and would have been hidden by number 55. Application 19/00700/FUL is nowhere near the old vicarage and largely invisible even from Church Lane.
30 seconds.
The proposal house design for this modern tile-clad metal window structure that does not accord with the local street scene. The proposal is within the conservation area. The majority of the houses on Church Lane lie outside the conservation area. The present application is massive, intrusive, overlooks and overshadows number 55 that is adjacent to the historical old vicarage orchard. that the application wants to develop. There are 23 objections on the planning portal, not 16. There are 20 supporting statements, including 2 of the applications or directors of the company making the proposal. We ask the planning committee to uphold the planning inspector's views, preserve the local heritage, and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to ask if any members have any questions for clarification from Mr. Dyer. No, looks like you have a clean run. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Thank you. I'd now like to move on to the next speaker for this application, which is the agent, Mr. Philip Connor, on behalf of the applicant Black Box Developments Limited. Good evening, Mr. Connor. Thank you. You've heard the previous instructions. The little red button, the face in the middle of the thing, the stand. Once you start speaking, you have 3 minutes, with Tom giving you a 30-second warning. At that point, you could start to close. That would be great. Thank you very much. Please carry on.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Philip Connor, and I'm actually the applicant with my wife, Emma. We currently live at the vicarage with our 2 boys. Whilst we love living at the vicarage, unfortunately for health reasons, we will need to move in the near future to something with a ground floor bedroom and bathroom and a smaller plot. We do wish to remain in the village where our children have lived their entire lives. Our previous attempt to build in 2018-19 was rejected, as has been discussed. However, this application is supported by a contextual character assessment of Church Lane by Latham Architects, who have expertise in the heritage environment. The inspector did not have access to that information when considering the previous proposal. Furthermore, the design of our intended home has been developed in response to the previous decision, such as changes to the roof design requested by the Conservation Officer. We hope that you will agree that we have demonstrated the site can be developed in a sensitive way whilst meeting our needs as self-builders. Long Clawson is a great village with a good range of facilities, but with few available properties to meet our needs. If our application is supported, the vicarage will become available for another family to enjoy and support local facilities in the village. Just quickly, it's worth explaining a little bit again about the site, which we've partly covered. The site of the proposed property is a significant distance from the vicarage itself, and the topography of the site further separate the plots. The significant slope, which isn't obvious from the paper drawings, and vegetation significantly screen the proposed property from the vicarage. With guidance from the heritage architects, the location and orientation of the proposal was carefully considered to address the previous concerns raised. The proposal would simply continue the line of dwellings on the north side of Church Lane and would be part of the character providing enhancement of the site. We also believe the design itself contributes to the need for more flexible accommodation in the village. The architects have done a marvellous job, fully incorporating suggestions and recommendations by both Melton Planning and the Conservation Officer.
30 seconds.
While some people have inevitably objected to any building proposal close to their home, we have ensured that no overlooking is created so that the dwellings can coexist harmoniously. We are members of the community and we have received overwhelming local support from people, some of whom have also written letters of support. We hope you can agree with your planning officers and support our dream to build our own home to allow us to remain in the village where our children have grown up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for keeping to time. Do any members have any questions? To go for Councillor Higgins?
Yes, I've just quickly read the appeal. Would we be able to get the slide of the proposed where the proposed building is, and would the speaker be able to show where when the appeal for one dwelling was refused, where that was, or whether the officers can pull that up? Just because. Yeah, not the one with the multiple houses, because I get why that was refused. It's where this individual house is and where the one for the appeal, because the appeal.
Slide 12, I believe it's. slide 12, you can if you can pull that one up in terms of where the appeal site was and where the comparison where the existing. There we go. You just passed it. That's the one. That's the one. That shows the previously reviewed scheme in terms of its location, and then obviously beside that is the current scheme.
Okay, so my question to the speaker, where we're saying it's been moved significantly compared to the vicarage. So the appeal, which was refused, on the left, and then this is the proposed scheme on here. So what's the difference in meterage or how it's moved away from the vicarage, and whether the officer and or the speaker could come up with that? That would be helpful. Thank you.
The application has it's not moved away from, in terms of the rear elevation, it's not moved away from the vicarage. It's obviously it doesn't spread across the front of the site as opposed to before. So it's very much its gable end has been its gable end faces onto Church Lane, and it's a north-south orientation as opposed to a east-west orientation. Between the old vicarage and the development, there's extensive boundary treatment, and there is a differentiation between the curtilage of the old vicarage and the actual site itself, and proposed application site. A clear distinction between the two. If the proposal was granted, and obviously to shield the development from view, there could be additional planting along the boundary edge. There's obviously extensive vegetation currently at the moment. It's heavily screened along Church Lane, but due to topography, the old vicarage remains dominant within the site. It cannot be seen from Church Lane due to the screening of vegetation there at the moment, and the views obviously that you can actually see the old vicarage from are more to the east of the site and southwest. The views there are actually, you can see the old vicarage clearly, but obviously from the north of the site you cannot. And as I said before, most of the site is heavily screened by vegetation.
Okay, thank you. That's any other questions for Mr. Connor before I move from the hot seat? Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. In that case, then, that's the end of the speakers for this application. So I'd like to open this for debate. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, just following on from what was being said about the appeal. This appeal, I've got the number, is APP/Y243O/W/19/3221134, and it's obviously to do with what we've just talked about, is the dwelling in the paddock area. Now, this is something that the appeal officer said. So if I can just read, it's just a short piece to read. It's got, in my opinion, the proposal would appear as an unnecessary and visually intrusive addition to the wider grounds of the old vicarage that would undermine the spacious nature of the area and the open texture of this part of Church Lane. And I'd just like to have some sort of answer on that, because obviously the appeal officer was talking as well about the spaciousness of it. Yeah, I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the debate part here, so it's actually, rather than looking for more information, but I mean, I know it is covered in the report about the views of the inspector and the onward design. I don't know if any other comments on that. Councillor Higgins.
This is just where I'm at, and you know, this is the good reason why people come to committees as well and put their views forward. So It's always a fine balance, as everybody always tells us, and my view has changed as I've heard more. I'm attaching significant weight on the appeal in paragraph 12 and 11 and 12 of what the appeal inspector says. As the officers know, I attach great weight also to our conservation officer. I've got a lot of respect for Toby Ebbs and everything he says in there too. However, I'm struggling that because an appeal decision has come in, that am I best placed to overturn that? Bearing in mind, I don't see it. I know it's changed from the street scene, but equally from the grounds of the vicarage, the appeal inspector hasn't really defined that enough for me to overturn her decision on it. And so, while I respect where the officers come from, and I think if this came and there was no appeal decision in, I'd be minded to permit. At this moment in time, I'm struggling with the appeal decision, which I'm attaching significant weight to. Specifically, the paragraphs from 11 and 12 of her report. But I'm willing to hear more, and officers as well, because for me it's a knife-edge decision of which way I'm going to go. But that's where I'm thinking, and we'll see where it goes. But I would like to say I think the design is is far better. Everything else, and I commend what the applicant and their agents have done here. It's the appeal decision which is impacting my decision making here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, I mean, and again, we've got no bias on either way on this one, so please take that comment I'm about to make in that respect, in the fact that, as you said, they're always all finely balanced decisions, and it's in the whole, and it's a new application. So you still got to take some of the comments that the inspector had made, but it is a different application, and so you have to take all of those points in to respect, to sort of say whether in total balance it goes one way or another. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and to be fair, I am. But because they're saying the spaciousness of it, and the appeal inspector hasn't quite defined that, it feels to me when we look at slide 12 or whichever it was, it felt as if it, and as Councillor Gordon was saying, it was encroaching on the vicarage, and that's where I feel. And well, it's a new application as well, but that's where I am.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm more concerned about what this self-build is built of. That because I actually couldn't see a lot of problem with the one that was turned down because in keeping. Now this appears not to be the same sort of material, does it? If you could just enlighten me, because if people say about cast iron and stuff like that, I really don't like.
Krista, are you okay to talk about the materials? The materials I thought were fairly similar, but yeah.
The materials are similar to the surrounding street scene, vertical plain tile cladding, Flemish bond brickwork, metal coated balustrades, plain clay tile to the roof. It has a low level retaining wall. The materials are similar to what's in the surrounding area. So they integrate, like I said, it's within the townscape appraisal in terms of the suitable materials they're using. So it's not anything untoward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Somehow I've got something here in my mind that it is going to be different. That was, and I was concerned about, because there's a Juliet balcony, isn't there, and things there. I think, yeah. It was just.
Any other comments that Councillor Gordon?
Yes, it's got on here the gravelled driveway leading to parking and turning area. I thought we was moving away from gravel. So I don't know if it could probably be better tarmacked if it goes ahead.
I have to ask you a question now. I'm not sure what the Yeah, so I mean, we could put a condition on to agree the material for the driveway.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So worked with that. Councillor Pritchett.
Gravel is actually seen as more fitting in rural occasions and for country houses than tarmac or block paving. So I'm quite happy with the gravel driving and the permeable nature of what's been agreed.
Okay, we have a difference of opinion there. Okay, any other questions or comments or towards the debate, or would anybody wish to make a proposal?
No, because I genuinely have not decided. I'm just exploring if it was to be refused, bearing in mind, for me to refuse it, it's going to be literally of what the appeal inspector said, and I'm EN 30. The design, I'm quite happy with the design. It's just because it's so close to the vicarage. Yeah, what in terms of the officers, just for assistance, so I could try and clear in my head if I fall one way or another. It feels as if the application, the build form is too close to the vicarage. It's like there's no garden or greenery space. And I know, like the officer said, well, we could put screening in there, but then that gives an enclosed feel to the vicarage and the grounds setting that it's in. And I know we're not going to get a perfect world with anything, because, as I say, you can absolutely see what the applicant has tried to do to mitigate everything. And it's at great cost to an applicant to do that. It's you know, it's no fun keep going back to a drawing board. That all said, and I just want to put this warning out, is at some stage something may end up getting built here, and I can't view that because that's not in front of us. But you know, if it's good, it's a permit. If it's not, and going back to the appeal inspector site, just feels a little bit too close for me. But what would be those national and local policies which were very much of the appeal of what the appeal inspector founded their refusal on? I just want to explore that a little bit more, because it might switch me one way or another.
I mean, I know I don't normally, as chairman, I don't normally give my views on this, but if we look at the sites from the vicarage towards, it is a site which is currently with trees. So where would, and this is to offering a compromise, this is not a suggestion, yeah, that if the boundary treatment between the vicarage and the site was looked at, so what further trees, whatever, could be used to make sure it wasn't to be viewed. Because I mean, I assume the view from the vicarage at the moment is of the ex-orchard, which is now overgrown, etc., etc. So I'm just looking at it from that point of view. So is it very different? Again, that's just to put up a, I'm not saying I'm biased in either direction at this moment in time. But it's just to put that up in the fact that it is as big a distance than, say, the house behind it, if you look at the site. Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the overall site plan, the one with the blue and the red, yeah, the vicarage is the 45. No, 45 is the vicarage. The one at the bottom right. And that's the garden in front of the vicarage leading up towards the red boundary. Yeah. The site where it's going to be built is in the red boundary, sideways on towards the vicarage. And that is currently trees and the pond, etc. there. So number 55 is the house that will be behind it. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, sorry.
But
was the point you were making about
yeah.
the view from the vicarage and across the garden and the openness of the garden, etc.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, it's still very tight, just whether the house is that way or that way, and then where it all spills out. It just seems as if it's still very similar in the same location. But yeah, I know where you're going, so thank you for
Yeah, okay.
exploring.
Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's kind of on the same issue, but you know, I find looking at these plans, the sense of dimensions and size isn't particularly helpful. But I have visited the site, and just a couple of observations. I mean, certainly from, I don't know my east, north, west, and south, but down the side towards number 43, the view of the vicarage, it feels quite spacious. It feels quite open. I was quite surprised at that. You know, comparing it to the plans, it didn't seem to me that the site proposed for development would crowd in upon the old vicarage site, but that's just, you know, a visual sense. And equally, number 55 is very, you know, heavily planted around. You know, so I didn't get the impression that developing this site would have a severe visual impact on the adjacent properties, either the vicarage or the property immediately next door. But I do understand what Councillor Higgins is saying regarding the previous appeal and how that impacts on this, and I also finely balanced on whether it's appropriate to give approval or not. But I think, yeah, on balance, the argument that it has that detrimental an impact on the vicarage, I'm not swayed by.
Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very much interested in what Councillor Brown said and Councillor Higgins before. And when we talk about the appreciation of an interesting historic building, it's not just what you see from the point of the building, it's how you appreciate that building. And I found I could only really appreciate the old vicarage as I wound my way round Church Street North around the bends to look at it sideways on. So as you were going along Church Lane past the church, I didn't know, it didn't come to my attention. I was watching the road, and then I waved my way round to look at the site. It was only when I got round to the going round and out the village that I appreciated the building itself. The officers and the conservation officer, I'm very pleased to see that the conservation officer suggested conditions are in there to check the final check of the materials. The only issue you're left with in terms of what I think Councillor Higgins has raised is, should it be a bungalow right on the street, right near the hedge, a narrow bungalow with trees behind it? You know that would seem, it would seem to me that you're saying push it further away to the street. But as I say, on balance, I'm coming down with the same sort of analysis as Councillor Brown.
Any further comments or debate? In that case, I mean, I feel we're at a point where we need to make a step forward in some way or another. So would anybody be willing to propose either a refusal or an acceptance for this? Would anyone like to be proposed? Councillor Pritchett.
I'll propose that we accept the recommendation of the officers.
Can I just please seek some clarification that would be an approval subject to the conditions in the report, the additional conditions which were set on screen, and then there was a discussion about the submission of details of the driveway as well. So I just want to clarify what your proposal is, please.
So what was the last one?
So we've got the ones in the report, we've got the additional ones that are on screen which relate to the conservation officer, the lighting and BNG. But there's also a discussion, I think it was Councillor Gordon that made with regards to the submission of details of the driveway.
Leave it as it's proposed with the gravel. The council will have suggested that so many metres is hard anyway, haven't they? before the road. So I'm not proposing a change on the driveway.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchett. So would anybody like to second the proposal? Councillor Brown. Sorry, just got in there before you. So therefore we have a proposal to accept the application as per the recommendations. Councillor Garnsey.
Could I just make a request that we actually read the additional conditions out, because those who are watching perhaps may not have seen the screen, so they don't know what we're actually agreeing to. I know it's fairly wordy, but I do apologise.
Just waiting for technology, but that is not a problem at all.
Okay, Councillor Higgins, while we're waiting.
I thought I'll fill the gap in. Yes, as at this moment, I think just because of the appeal inspector, I may abstain. The reason being is since the appeal in 2019, the government's thrust very much is more in houses, so national policy is probably leaning a bit more. But as I'm unsure about that, I'm probably going to abstain because I don't want to go against the appeal inspector's decision.
Thank you, Louise.
Certainly. So your motion would be for the conditions as set out in the report, and then there were 3 additional conditions proposed on screen. The first one was regard to lighting. So no external lighting shall be installed on the site until details, including luminance levels and measures to minimise light spillage, have been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. External lighting shall only be installed in accordance with the approved details and shall not be replaced with any alternative lighting without the prior permission in writing of the local planning authority. That's the first one. The second one is to do with biodiversity enhancement. No development shall take place until a biodiversity enhancement scheme has been submitted and approved in writing by the LPA. Enhancement shall include, but is not limited to, at least 1 integrated back box, 2 integrated swift boxes, the make, model and their locations. Any enhancement measures need to be shown on all relevant submitted plans. All works are to proceed strictly in accordance with the approved scheme. That's the second one. The third one is the suggestions of the Conservation Officer. Prior to the commencement of works, full manufacturer's specifications must be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority for the following elements: vertical plain clay tile cladding, red multi-tone brickwork, tinted cast stone concrete plinth, recessed tinted cast stone concrete lintels, powder coated aluminium windows and doors, powder coated metal balustrade, plain clay tile to roof, apex roof lights, aluminium downpipes, hoppers, roof mounted solar panels, low level retaining wall. All new windows must be flush fitted, not storm proofed, and cannot feature visible trickle vents. All new roof lights must be conservation profile and fitted flush to the roof plane. There must be no vents in the roof plane facing the street scene of the conservation area. There must be no flue or ventilation extracts on the front elevation of the building. Thereafter, the development shall not be carried out other than in accordance with the approved details.
So is that as you expected? Thank you. And the seconder, are you okay with that? Sorry. Councillor Gordon.
Yes, I just wanted to guarantee that to do with the driveway with the gravel, so long as there is enough hard standing before the gravel begins, so that the gravel doesn't go onto the lane, onto Church Lane.
So the application will have a drawing condition, and within the drawings, the block plan does show that there's gravel and then there's an awaiting area as you enter the highway junction. So there will be that gap between the private driveway area and the highway. So there'll be a separation.
So we have a proposal to accept the application? And the seconder, I'd like to therefore put it to the vote. Those in favour of the proposal, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 6, 7. Those against? And those abstain? 2 abstentions. Therefore, the application is approved. Thank you for your time, everyone, and thank you. And thank you, members, for your time, and officers for your time. And thank you, Christopher, for your first meeting. I'll call the meeting to an end. Thank you very much.